There's some U.S. oil companies that are still operating in Russia despite pledges to wind down their operations. National Oil Well Varco, which is a U.S. company based in Houston, has oil field services in Russia, still even after announcing in a press release a year ago that it was, and this is a quote, actively examining our alternatives, including the potential to further curtail our activities. In March of last year, 2022, Schlumberger announced that it would, another quote, immediately suspend new investments in technology deployment to our Russian operations. But just 7 months later, Schlumberger, still in Russia, was caught distributing military draft notices to 9,000 of its Russian employees to supply forces to Putin's mass mobilization effort. So, Mr. Light, for some of these companies, it sounds just like business as usual in Russia. In May, I wrote a letter to Secretary Granholm and Secretary Yellen asking them to evaluate oil companies that are still operating in Russia. So could the department please take a closer look into this and provide me with a report on the operating status of U.S. oil companies still in Russia? And things specifically like this. I mean, I just find this, just very concerning that a company that is based in London, that trades on the New York Stock Exchange, that is assisting Vladimir Putin in getting his draft notices to his citizens. That's just unacceptable. So I'd appreciate you looking into this.
I'm happy to take that on, sir. And even though it is Treasury and Commerce who enforce those sanctions and compliance, I am very happy to work with you and your staff, schedule a briefing as soon as possible to talk about the Russian sanctions, their impact on the industry, and what we know and what we need to know in order to address this problem moving forward. So we'd welcome that conversation.
Yeah, I think these companies should have had plenty of time to wind down operations by now, and shouldn't be, assisting in Russia's war in Ukraine. So, Ms. Jørgensen, as you know, oil revenue is how Putin finances this illegal invasion. And in December, the West capped the price of Russian oil at $60 a barrel, well below the global market price of $85. It appears that the cap is having the intended effect of depressing revenue without directly cutting the global supply. The Kremlin's income from oil and gas is the lowest that it's been since the beginning of this pandemic. Some analysts estimate that Russia only earned $5 billion from fossil fuels in January, which is about half in January of the previous year. So on Friday, this past Friday, Russia announced it was cutting crude oil production by 500,000 barrels per day, which is about 5% of the country's output. And the propagandists there say that the cuts are retaliation for the oil price caps, but I think it's worth noting that Russia's decision came days after it endorsed the OPEC Plus plan. So, Ms. Jørgensen, how would you describe the effectiveness of these price caps, and could they eventually diminish Russia's ability to invest in future production?
Let me go to the bathroom for you.
Thank you, Senator. So far as your question indicates, we have seen quite a significant effect of the price cap. I think it's important to note that the price cap comes on top of what was already a full embargo on oil and coal exports, small exception for some pipeline oil for reasons of security of supply for a couple of member states, but really 90% of our oil imports was already under a full ban. We have banned investments into the energy sector in Russia, and we have banned exports of any technology that is necessary for extraction or LNG. So the price cap comes on top when these very significant sanctions are already in place.
And are our allies fully complying with this cap?
So far, the results are good, both in terms of reducing the profits for Russia in this sector, but also in terms of ensuring compliance. This measure put together jointly with partners, including the United States, seemed to be effective. We have, within the European Union, appointed an official to be responsible, including for relations with international partners, to ensure that there is compliance with the sanctions. So I think so far so good, but we of course continue to monitor very, very closely.
What would happen if we changed the cap to $50 or $40?
It is possible within the cap, within the measure we have taken to reduce downwards. So we'll see over time how the markets develop and what's the most effective way of approaching it. So I think we have so far, as I said, put in place 9 sanctions packages. We've presented a 10th, and we will be ready to do what is necessary.
Yeah, I think that's worth looking into. Thank you.
Senator Murkowski.